All right, folks, Alex Mitts back with another Camtasia quick tip for you. This one's actually pretty straightforward. It's a tool that you probably already use, but just a couple of quick, fun things that I like to do with this tool. So here we've got a recording of a Google Sheet. Let's say we're making a tutorial for someone else. And in this sheet, we have, a couple of numbers that we're inputting, 1, 2, 3. We're going to highlight this and drag it down. We're going to pretend that there's some really awesome voiceover going with this, but we're going to total this up using a formula. And that formula is going to go up into the formula bar. There are some options here that we can use. In fact, there's lots of options that we can use to call attention to that formula bar before we get there. But one of my favorites is under Annotations, and it is under Sketch Motion Callouts. I love these because they're super cool, they're animated, they're a great way to draw the eye to something else. Now, in a lot of instances, a zoom is perfectly acceptable. On your timeline or your media item, you can do an animation and kind of zoom in like this. Yoink, and then zoom back out if you want to, create another custom animation and scale to fit, or, do the reverse animation. However, zooms aren't always the answer. As much as I want them to be, they're not always the answer. So what I do sometimes to call attention to something before I get there is I'll drop in a sketch motion animation right before my mouse starts moving to that location, basically letting my learner know that, hey, this is gonna come up real soon. So I drop this on the timeline. I'll probably move it over here. I'll probably end up turning off snapping to snap it exactly right. It's Control semicolon. So now it's not snapping to anything on the stage. I'll zoom in. So I'll hold the space bar and then use my scroll wheel to get nice and tight in there. And then I will fix this to exactly where I want my learners to look. And I just want them to look at this part of the formula bar. I know it extends all the way over there, but it's not necessarily, we don't necessarily need to go all the way over here since we're taking up such a small portion of this formula bar. And with Sketch Motions, just like most other things that are out-of-the-box Camtasia, you can adjust color, especially if you have a brand guideline to follow, thickness, how fast the box draws. But it's really cool. If you've never used this before, it's just a yoink. Red is the first color the eye sees. Having some sort of animation there draws the eye to this location. The only thing I don't love about this is once you hit the end of Sketch Motion, it just blips away. So what I do, and under my favorites tab, or under my favorites bar, I'm not sure, hit the F key. I have a couple of favorites that I use pretty regularly, and fade is one of them. So I'll usually just drop a fade right at the end of this Sketch Motion, and so it kind of gently fades out. So I'll find where my mouse is going to start moving, right about there. I'll maybe drop a marker on the timeline. Scale this back a bit. That'll snap there. If you've turned snapping off here, you can turn it back on, Control semicolon, if you need to start snapping other objects. But most of the time, hit play, total. Oh, see, and now this is where the editing comes in. We haven't even written total yet. I'm going to zoom in on my timeline here a bit, Control and then scroll wheel on the timeline, scrolling up. And I'm going to wait till total is all the way written out. I don't necessarily need another marker because I'm just going to trim this up right there. I'll delete this marker here since it has served its purpose. Total, yoink. That's where we're going to go. And I might even extend this out up until we get to the click. There we go. Extend out, see how that turns out? Maybe a little bit farther out because you may notice that total here is the same as in the formula bar. So once that goes away, right about there. Now let's see how that looks. Yep, calling attention to our next step, fades out, click, and then we can start working there. So yeah, normally it's a little bit slower than this. You may want to extend some frames to make this whole idea come together. But for the most part, that's what I use a lot of these Sketch Motion animations for, is to draw the learner's eye to where I want them to go when a zoom is not necessarily appropriate, and it's something pretty quick and easy, and those Sketch Motions are really cool. Going back to Annotations, you've got circles, you've got lines, you've got check marks, you've got X's and stars and arrows. You've got all sorts of interesting callouts that you can use to draw a learner's attention where you need it to go. And I hope that's helpful. If you're not using that favorites tab to favorite things you use quite often, definitely start utilizing that and drop a fade on the end of one of these to make it just gently move out once it's all said and done. Thanks very much.